Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here tonight. I did want to say I didn't know that Grace was in crutches, but bad news with Obamacare. First, we're going to charge you a tax on your crutches. Then your doctor is going to not provide the service anymore because reimbursement rates are going to go so low. And then the government's going to ask you to give the crutches to somebody else. Look, I thought I would just spend a few minutes. I haven't had a chance to meet a lot of you, so I thought I'd spend a few minutes and tell you about who I am. Then tell you a little bit about some of the issues that I think are important in this election and why I think I'd be a better congressman than Tim Bishop. I come from a very modest background. My father left us when I was 8 years old, so my mom at that point was unemployed. I have an older brother, and she had to bring up my brother and myself on her own. We didn't have any money, but my mom went out and worked extremely hard, got a job obviously, and supported us. For her, nothing was more important than her two sons. We also depended a lot on faith as well. That was something that helped sustain us through the tough times, and something that I haven't forgotten since. My mom thought that education was very important, so pushed me very hard to go to college, and I got my MBA. I worked my way through college. I was a short order cook. I was a terrible cook, by the way, and I was also a security guard, and I'm not much of a security guard either, but it helped pay the bills. And I met my wife, Cheryl, in college. I'm 39 years old. I've been with my wife for 19 years, so that was the best part of college, frankly, my wife. And I started a career. I had to always work very hard. I'll tell you a story about myself. I've never gotten my IQ taken. I don't know how many people in this room know their IQ. But when I was graduating from college, a large company based in Minneapolis had a program for recent graduates. So I flew out to Minneapolis to interview for this job. I was very excited. And they said to me, we're going to give you an IQ test as part of this job interview. I said, great, I'd always want to know what my IQ is. So I had the test, and the next day I came back for the results. And the psychologist, I said to the psychologist, so how did I do? And he said to me, you should be very proud of what you've accomplished. So I didn't get the job, and I did not work hard to find out what my IQ is. But it's really been about hard work for me. And for the last 10 years I've been an entrepreneur. I've employed over 700 people here in the country. I've met a payroll. I've managed a budget, and it isn't easy. I know a lot of you in this audience are small business owners. It's very tough. There were a lot of times where I couldn't meet the payroll, where I had to come home to my wife and say, there's bad news. There's no pay for us this week or this month because I got to pay my employees. My wife, bless her, always understood that. And it was always difficult to deal with the excessive regulation. My political views, I've never been involved with politics before. They've been shaped by my life. They've been shaped by the fact that I felt the burden of excessive taxation. I understand firsthand how bad excessive government regulation is and how difficult it is just to get through the bureaucracy of the government. I understand how important faith is through the own experience of my own family. My wife and I are blessed to have a 3-year-old son, but that's always been a very difficult thing for us as well, having children. So that's had a huge impact on our values as well. I think this is an absolutely important and critical election, and I got involved because I want my son to also be able to live the American dream. This country has been so good to me because if you work hard and you get lucky, you can do almost anything you set your heart out to. But the question is that American dream still alive? Can you still do that? And when I looked at the men and women in Congress today, I saw they were ending that dream, and they were blowing up our budget. They were excluding, putting into the private sector, the public sector. The government was taking over critical functions that were better left in the private sector. They were raising taxes on small businesses. They were doing all these things that were counter to what makes America America. We have a president of the United States who was running around the world apologizing for our country, and I just didn't think that was right. So I decided to get involved. I live in Smithtown. My wife's a pediatrician, and I thought people would be interested in hearing from a businessman, not a professional politician. And I think people are sick and tired of Tim Bishop. look, the guy votes with Nancy Pelosi 97.3% of the time. And there is no way that what Nancy Pelosi wants 97% of the time can match what we need and what we ask for here in this district. And I have a very old-fashioned perspective on what a congressman should do. A congressman is supposed to represent us. We pay their salary. And it's just like a customer, right? If I don't do what my customers ask me to do, they fire me. And if our congressman doesn't do what we ask them to do, they should be fired too. And I think clearly in this case, Tim Bishop isn't independent. Tim Bishop is all about what Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats in Washington tell him to do. And after 8 years, even the best of us lose perspective. You know, Tim Bishop's been in Washington for 8 years. He's lost touch with what we really care about here. Because if he didn't, he wouldn't have voted for the health care bill. I mean, in nobody's wildest imagination, you led the charge, but my goodness, nobody in this district wanted the health care bill. He wouldn't have voted for cap and trade. He wouldn't have voted for these bailouts and this stimulus plan, which has led to nowhere. $800 billion, where has that money gone?
Unions.
I can't tell you. And he would have continued to do this over and over again. Support higher taxes on small businesses. Not extend the tax cuts that are coming out here, which are going to have an impact on all of us. But that's what Tim Bishop stands for. What do I want to accomplish in office? Some very basic things. Can't have two, you want to focus yourself. So first, I want to make sure we have a balanced budget. Because that's where it's got to start. In your home, it starts that way. In your business, it does. You can't afford to run a company or a business or a government with a giant deficit. And that's something that we absolutely have to change. We need to help small businesses. Small businesses are what's going to get this economy going again, not a giant government. Government jobs don't create more jobs. And to help small businesses, we need to give them tax incentives. We need to lower their taxes, not raise them. I mean, the MTA tax, that's not a federal issue, but my goodness, that hits everyone here. And it's just inconceivable that we would burden our businesses with a tax to bail out the transit authority in New York City when they were cutting the service out here. It's absolutely unbelievable. So we need to help businesses and cut taxes. And these are some very basic things. I also believe in term limits, because I think that politicians shouldn't be there their entire lives. Now, we had a tough primary. I was fortunate enough that both my opponents, George Demos and Chris Cox, very graciously have offered their support to me, and we're all focused on the prize. So. It's my job to unite all of us together, and first, to defeat Tim Bishop, but second, to make you proud. And a lot of people know where I live now, and my wife and son are going to be there, so if I don't make you proud, you guys aren't shy. You know where to find me, but I'm determined to be the congressman that I've told you I'm going to be. And I'm determined to go to Washington and make those two first key votes. The second one, stopping Obamacare and repeal it. By Nancy Pelosi. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll with Steve and Judy, but thank you again for having me. I know you have worked so hard and so tirelessly to make changes. There's so many of you who've never been involved before in politics, like me, who've gotten up and stood up and said, you've had enough. That we have to take back this country. We have to return to values that people call conservative. I think we just call them American values. Values that were enumerated in the Constitution. Values that have made this country what it is. And you've been so good about it. There's no payoff for you. You're doing this because you think this is what is right. And you're dedicating your time to it. And I have to tell you that's inspiring, and it's also very humbling. And in my campaign, I've had hundreds of people who have done the same thing, and again, it's my job and the other candidates' jobs not only to win, but when we get to Congress, to actually do what we say we're going to do. And not just be like the other guys, because if we end up being like the other guys, then there's no reason for you to have all done your hard work. So we have to make you proud. So thanks again, and happy to answer any questions.